WIFTV-PM. Shop at Black-owned and operated Solo Beauty, where you are appreciated and respected. Located at 8158 South Cottage Grove, Solo Beauty can supply all of your black hair care needs. Solo Beauty is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday, or you can find them online at solobeauty.com.
You're listening to I Said What I Said with Toussaint Warner and Herb Howard.
Well, what was the power of the Bible? Most motherfuckers couldn't read. So the Bible legitimately changed the world because motherfuckers began to learn to read. And once I can learn to read, wait a minute, I can question some of this bullshit you talking about.
What school you go to though?
It don't matter.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Well, no,
I went to Dunbar.
Yes!
That sounds Dunbar. Oh, it's good. People disrespect the city schools.
This Chicago.
And I'm a motherfucking genius.
And that's on period.
Shout out to the mighty man. Nah, I'm just playing. But seriously though, think about it though, right? The Bible legitimately changed the world, right?
What's up, good people? You're listening to I Said What I Said with Toussaint Warner and Herb Howard live on What's In It for the Black People Media, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Hi, I'm Dr. Willie Wilson. People in Illinois have been crying out for justice, equality, and fairness from their government for years. And it keeps getting worse. Unfair taxes, laws that unjustly imprison nonviolent offenders. The rich get richer, and the everyday people suffer. It's time for a change, and with your help, I'm here to do it. I'm asking for your support as I run for U.S. Senator in 2020.
Paid for by Willie Wilson for Senate 2020.
So D-Ray, I wanted to ask you, so do you have a bad boy radio moment? Do you remember an event that you were at that we were hosting or something we did on the radio that really stayed with you?
Okay. Something y'all did on the radio that stayed with me was letting me get on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's true.
That was my step in the door. It was my opportunity to get into GCI, which I started working, you know, there. You guys got me on Sundays and all that stuff. And it introduced me to doing more characters because I would do characters on your guys' show. I don't even remember what the hell I was doing then, but you guys were just let me go, and that freedom didn't exist nowhere in radio.
Yeah, and it doesn't exist anymore, which is what we're starting to hear and we
Right.
see when it comes to radio.
Chicago Famous, 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, right here on What's in It for the Black People Media.
WIIFTBPN.
Live from What's in It for the Black Media Studio.
And so, my fellow Americans, I have a dream.
You're listening to Trigger.
You want to crown him? Then crown her ass. I ain't scared of you, mother.
The one and only
Mike Brown. Mike Brown.
My calculations are correct.
Let's begin.
Hey, here we go. What's going on? What's in it for the Black People Media presents Trigger with Mike Brown. I am your host, Instructor Mike. Another exciting show today. I think I triggered you enough. Nope. All right, so we're going to go on ahead and we're going to dive right into it. But first, I just want to say, that was a great show for the Book of Dawn that you just got through watching. And I said what I said with Herb Howard and Toussaint Warner. Just make sure that you like this page, the Maze Jackson page, and go on and hit the stars so that you can support great content like this. It really takes a lot to be able to produce great content from Maze Jackson and The Morning Show with Todd Stroger and Ruthie Moore and Sonia Escobar. It just takes a lot to be able to produce this. And so if you want to keep it going, the stuff is not free. And a lot of people talk about how, you'd wish you'd had great content, or we wish we had things. We got to support the people who support us and support the programs that support us so that we can get great content, whether you like it, love it, hate it. It is all relevant. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We are going to take calls later on in the show. Okay, so I'm going to give you the number to call, 872-259-7474, 872-259-7474. And anything that you want to discuss, especially relative to concealed carry, any of the things that we've talked about in this show, just give you just a rundown of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk just a little bit more on the Breonna Taylor. I think that's important to focus on, especially because I was just monitoring some of the other traffic on some of the other shows, and the difference between civil law and criminal law, and the $12 million lawsuit that was just, that the family just got. And will that have a difference or make a difference on any type of criminal case that could arise from the grand jury indictment or the inability to come up with a true bill or an indictment? And there are different standards of proof. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about, are we ready? Of course, this is a recap of what we've talked about before, but I think it's important to talk about that again because, just listening to previous shows again, there is a misconception of what I mean when I say, are we ready? And I think it's important to even talk about that. And then we're going to go on ahead and talk about concealed carry issues because I do want you to be educated on some of the issues specifically regarding concealed carry. I received a letter, not directed to me, but it was on Facebook, and a couple of other people have received letters that I know of. The issue with marijuana. We've been talking a lot about cannabis legislation and licensing and things like that. And as it relates to concealed carry, well, it's legal in the state of Illinois, both concealed carry and medical marijuana, as well as regular consumption that has been pulled on folks. And let's talk about folks, the black community. Yeah, I'm going to say that. You fell for that shit. Right in the middle of, what was it? It was some kind of holiday where you were fattening up and eating barbecue, and legislators were like, I got your ass. So we're going to go on and talk about that too, okay? So without further delay, let's dive right on in it. Breonna Taylor. Tragic situation that occurred in Louisville, Kentucky, okay, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, where 3 police officers, a part of the criminal interdiction unit, went in and, in a search warrant that was for Breonna Taylor, contrary to popular belief, and she was subsequently shot after Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend, who was present with her that day. She was not asleep, no sleep, no slumber. She was woke because of the knock that was stated to have occurred at the door. Kenneth approached the door, and shots were fired. And Kenneth was the first one to shot. He had made the admission, and police returned fire where Breonna was subsequently struck and tragically killed in that. And you all been paying attention to the media. $12 million lawsuit. $12 million lawsuit. Attorney Benjamin Crump was just adamant, very adamant in saying that this is the highest amount that any black person, especially a woman, received as a result of a multi-million dollar or as a result of a wrongful death lawsuit. And you even in the Laquan McDonald situation, $5 million. They took that money and ran. Took that money. You don't see the family, maybe the uncle you might see, but you don't see anybody else, you know. And does this have any effect on the criminal case? Let's talk about that first. And then I'll talk about something regarding Attorney Ben Crump. Nothing personal against him. I don't know him personally. But if you don't understand the civil process of what happens in civil litigation, I'm going to show you why that settlement, if the interest of justice is to really seek out justice, and him being a civil attorney, not a criminal attorney, but him being a civil attorney, is seeking to get justice through whatever actions he's able to produce. He has not done it in this case. He has not done it in this case. I'm going to tell you why. First of all, the difference between the civil law and the criminal law. First of all, you're talking about standards of proof. In civil law, it's the preponderance of the evidence, which is a 51% standard, a very low burden of proof. And within civil litigation, you're usually talking about a wrong or a tort that has been committed, some type of damage that has occurred to someone out of a duty or a responsibility to perform some kind of action and the failure to perform that duty. And you have two types of liabilities. And again, I'm not an attorney. This is just my, criminal justice education as a former adjunct professor. So I'm just going to qualify that. I'm not a licensed attorney, but I'm very well educated in this. Okay. Out of that, you have strict liability, and then you have vicarious liability. Shouts out to Mike Love, who's watching this, and Diz, Chicago famous. Pay attention, y'all. Strict liability and vicarious liability. So in strict liability, you have a duty. Somebody said they're triggered by the internet connection. I am too. The duty, in essence, to perform a particular action without any mindset. Okay, we need to go ahead and take a break because I don't want you to miss any of this. And we got a little bit of technical difficulties. That happens when you got great content. Sometimes things get in the way. It happens. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with Triggered with Instructor Mike Brown. Don't go anywhere.
WIPN.
Shop at Black-owned and operated Solo Beauty, where you are appreciated and respected. Located at 8158 South Cottage Grove, Solo Beauty can supply all of your black hair care needs. Solo Beauty is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday, or you can find them online at solobeauty.com.
You can hang out with Chicago famous Mike Love and Diz 3 to 6 p.m. right here on What's In It for the Black People Media live on the Mace Jackson page. So shout out to Chicago famous. They did their thing. They did a phenomenal job. Those brothers, listen, radio legends, right? And you come in and you're used to doing things one way and trying to flip it and do another way. They handled it seamlessly, man. So shout out to Mike Love and Diz for holding it down as they always have done. Welcome to the What's In It for the Black People Media family. Good luck at achieving number 2 status for the second best show on What's In It for the Black People Media, because number 1 is and always will be I Said What I Said.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
Whenever I play, I want to play to win. I don't see no purpose in playing.
You play to win the game.
What's the word?
In the famous
Can
words.
you beat my ass though?
Can you whoop my ass though?
It's really that simple. I don't plan on getting my ass whooped.
Hey, yo, wait a minute. Hey.
Chicago famous ain't gonna whoop my ass.
And Chicago
we
famous
not here for no ass whooping.
Hey, what's your problem, man? Y'all are brothers. You ain't supposed to be fighting each other.
We not here for no ass whooping.
That's not what we here for.
We're not here for no ass whooping.
It's not what we here for.
Not at all.
What's up, good people? You're listening to I Said What I Said with Tucson Warner and Herb Howard live on What's In It for the Black People Media, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m.
WIIFTBPN. WIIFTBPN.
Live from What's In It for the Black Media Studio.
And so, my fellow Americans, I have a dream.
You're listening to Triggered.
You want to crown him? Then crown her ass. I ain't scared of you, mother.
The one and only
Mike Brown.
My calculations are correct.
Let's begin.
That's right. All right, we are back. We are back with Trigger with Instructor Mike. I'm your host, Instructor Mike. We're going to go on ahead and dive right back into it, okay? Thank you all for watching on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. If you're watching it on YouTube, go on ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. Go on ahead and like the Maze Jackson page, and don't forget to hit those stars to support, again, great content like this. We're going to go on ahead and dive right back into it. So before the break, we were talking about the difference in civil law and criminal law, as there was a lot of questions regarding the Breonna Taylor settlement, the $12 million settlement that her family received as her apartment in Louisville, Kentucky. So let's talk about it. Civil law, the standard of proof, okay? Preponderance of the evidence, 51% standard, rather low, okay? In that, in civil law, a damage or a tort, something that was done out of a duty to act, and that duty was either violated, something was not done professionally, things of that nature. And in that, you have strict liability and vicarious liability. Strict liability is, it has nothing to do with a person's intention or their mindset behind whatever action took place. It's just that the action took place, And with the vicarious liability, it has a lot to do with your employer. And under the doctrine, respondeat superior, which is let the master answer for the actions of the subordinate. So when you're talking about these two types of liabilities in civil law, the standard of proof is very, very low. It just requires more likely than not evidence to show that one party did or failed to do something. And so the civil law case or the civil lawsuit doesn't have anything to do directly with the civil law, because you have two different courts, two different standards of evidence. In criminal law, you have, let's start with a simple reasonable suspicion. The case of Terry versus Ohio, 392 U.S. 1 is the minimum standard of proof for, just to be able to stop someone in suspecting of them committing a crime. Then on top of that, you have, you said it's not enough. Okay. Well, then on top of that, you have the, probable cause. I'm having a brain fart here. Probable cause. Probable cause is just, facts and circumstances known to the officer at the time of an arrest to believe that a person committed a crime. And that's what grand jury indictments typically would be, is that probable cause. Whether or not these collection of 12 or 24 or plus or minus citizens from a given county, the voters in that area, selected and pulled and impaneled into that grand jury, if they have enough or if they believe that the state has brought enough evidence to show that there is probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed in that given situation. And sometimes people get excited, and we're not going to digress too much, but just touching on that. Sometimes people get very excited over an indictment or over the producing or the production of charges in a civil case, thinking that that's the justice, without understanding that the evidence that's needed to convict will be proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a higher standard than what is in a civil case, that proof beyond a reasonable doubt being 95% or more without a reasonable doubt. And the best case that I can say that I would believe that most black folks would be able to understand the difference between civil and criminal law is the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson. In other words, the O.J. Simpson case. In the criminal case, he was found not guilty. In the civil case, right, he was found liable. Okay. Because the standard of proof is different, the jurors are different, the venue or where the trial takes place is different. And in understanding that too, a person can be found not guilty in a criminal trial, but could definitely be found liable because the standard of proof is there. So does a $12 million lawsuit affect the charging of these three officers in this incident? That's a great question. My guess, my answer, based on my, professional experience, opinion, education, no. Not even the same, no. And if Ben Crump, the attorney in this matter, handling this for the family, if he was really interested in getting justice, not just for the Taylor family, but for the criminal justice system as it relates to black people as a whole, he would not have settled. He would have taken this case to trial. Why would he have it's no money off of your back. After all, you're taking this case on the contingency that you win. And it's a wrongful death, right? Breonna Taylor was not the target of the gunfire. Kenneth Walker was. Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend, was the one who shot the pistol at the officers, whom he didn't know. In fairness, he did not know that they were officers. It was a no-knock warrant. You heard the knock. A knock does not specify it's the police or not. So he shot at who he thought was home invaders. Justified. That's why they don't have him on trial now. They had to release him, right? So that's why. Any reasonable, prudent person in his position would understand why you shot, to protect yourself, to protect your girlfriend, right? The life over the property. But when you look at this given situation, right, it's definitely a wrongful death. But if I'm attorney Ben Crump, which I'm not, because I'm not profiting off a black death like that, in all honesty, okay, because I'm not going to lie, my profession is also profiting off of death, because death of other people spawns other people to see they need to protect themselves, and that gets me customers, in honesty, right? But there's a different kind of profiting, if you will, right? So if Attorney Crump was really for the black people, really in the interest of justice, you would use your powers of the subpoena. You would use your powers to subpoena the use of force policies of that given department. You would use the power of the deposition and bring in the chief of police or any other commanders, if not the officers themselves, and use their policies and procedures and get that on the record, right? You would force them to spend those millions of dollars and put them before the process to get them to answer to what, if anything, took place in this search warrant or in the execution of that search warrant that gave them reason to believe that Kenneth Walker was a threat, that gave them reason to believe that Breonna Taylor was or was not a threat. And you would have this evidence on the record if you were really interested in not only attacking the department by and through their procedures and their policies, but the criminal justice system as a whole. Just because they tell you or they propose some kind of financial settlement, you don't have to accept it. You're the plaintiff in this matter. But if you're in it for the money, you're going to go on ahead and take that settlement, right? Because think about it. Jacob Blake, George Floyd, right? Breonna Taylor. What, wasn't he the attorney for Trayvon Martin, and that wasn't a law enforcement matter? Why don't we ever hear about the outcomes of these situations? Why don't we hear about that? We hear about the settlement and we hear that they got money, and that's typically where the conversation ends. We don't continue this conversation in talking about the last thing we talked about in Triggered. What are the lessons learned from some of this? As long as someone gets a check, it's okay. If you're really interested in justice, right? I'm just saying, you better wake yourself up. Better wake yourself up to it. Okay. Now, are they going to get indicted? There's two tracks of thought to this. Two tracks of thought. One track of thought is, and this is the track that I tend to hold, they probably won't get indicted. I want you to understand, in criminal law, you've got two different elements that must be there. You have an actus reus and mens rea, okay? Actus reus and mens rea, and I could be switching the rea and reus up, okay? But those are Latin terms for actus rea, which is the act itself. I think it's actus reus, which is the act itself. And then the mens rea, which is the guilty mind. So you can have an act all day. You can have the shots fired. You can have a person that died, right? And we talked about strict liability, so we can attest to the act having occurred. But then you got the mens rea, which is the guilty mind. Is the state able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they shot and killed Breonna Taylor with, at first degree murder, malice aforethought, that there was a plan that can be proven, that there were steps that were taken. And in those steps that were taken, those steps resulted in acceleration and premeditation, that those steps resulted in the death of Breonna Taylor with criminal intent. Are they able to prove that even in manslaughter, there was an action that they were supposed to take that they knew could have resulted in someone dying and that they recklessly performed their job? Can we prove that in court? Can we prove that with a high degree of certainty? Because remember the Sixth Amendment prohibition against, charging a person twice. Okay? You need to understand that, right? We can look at certain things, even if we go back to civil law, right? One person putting themselves in the dangerous propensities of a thing they elude that is dangerous. Are they not responsible for the actions that occurred to them? Be lucky this didn't go to trial, because that's one argument that could definitely be had. Okay? One thing that could definitely be had. Okay? So, will they be charged? I really don't believe that they will be charged, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised if they do get charged. Okay, if we look at certain cases such as Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, let's talk about it. I'm going to trigger you now. You ready to get triggered? Yeah, I'm ready to trigger you now. Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. Travel with me to Sanford, Florida. But not before we go to the break. The conductor's always got me. No, here we go. Travel with me to Sanford, Florida. Okay, Sanford, Florida. In Sanford, Florida, we have young Trayvon Martin, okay, from the Atlanta area, and he's going to visit his father in Sanford, Florida. Now, he's from Atlanta, Georgia. You've got two different areas, if you will. Atlanta, is just like Chicago in certain respects, in our communities in certain respects. And I believe his mother, Sabrina Fulton, I think that's her name. That's where she lived. Well, his father is in Sanford, Florida, and that's a gated community. The one thing that I tell my son, and the one thing that I suggest that other people tell theirs, and the one thing that we always do, when in Rome, you do what the Romans do. When you're in certain areas, you act a certain way because of norms and standards of behavior. And then you've got your social deviants, right? People who deviate from societal norms. There's criminal deviants, and then there's just societal deviants, right? Criminal deviants, that's what we charge people for. Societal deviants, you may think of people who just wear things differently. You're goths kind of people, right? But in this, Trayvon Martin, we all know the story. Went to the store, wore a hoodie, wore his jeans or whatever he was wearing, went to the store to get a can of iced tea, Arizona iced tea and Skittles. Okay. And then we have him coming back from the store, and it is said, I don't know if they were able to prove it, but it was said that he went through a kind of a cutaway in the fence. Okay. And he didn't take the path of, people that live in that community or believe, where they cut their grass and you don't walk on the grass, you walk on the sidewalk, and you don't take shortcuts. What we in the hood do. You take shortcuts and cut through the grass and stuff like that. And Miss Johnson been out there, pruning that grass, and the youth say, fuck that grass. And that's what we do in the city. But in certain areas, Sanford, Florida, they kind of handle things differently. And I want you to go back to that time where there was a high string, because of the economy, there was a high string of residential burglaries. Okay. And so George Zimmerman, a neighborhood watch volunteer, some would say, just a guy who wanted to be the police and maybe he flunked out, whatever your subjective opinion is, was watching Trayvon. Don't know whether he knew him or not. It's believed that he didn't know him. Some would allude, or some would say he just saw him a black kid and just decided he was going to go after that black kid, and that was that. Okay, I'll go you there. But in any event, he saw him conducting certain kinds of actions that are contributed to actions that a burglar might take. Not stating that Trayvon himself was a burglar. And I'm saying all this because these might be details that you might not have considered as to why George Zimmerman was released or why he was found not guilty. See, you got angry, but you didn't learn the lesson, right? So, George Zimmerman then, grabs his Kel-Tec PF-11 9mm semi-automatic firearm, 10-round magazine, okay? And then he begins to follow young Trayvon. Trayvon is wearing a hoodie. He's wearing his jeans. He's cutting through certain corners in the grass and stuff like that, not necessarily on the sidewalk. And George Zimmerman is following him. I see what you're saying, Alvin. It's a lynching. I'm not going. Listen, right? And as he's following him, he calls the police. You know, the 12 that we say fuck all the time, fuck the police, right? Got it. He calls the police, right? I'm just going to tell you that as one commenter on Facebook, says it was a lynching. I want you to find me a lynching, as of recent, if you will, where they called the police prior to, and I know some of you all say it was the police during those times. Sure, you're right. But I want you to find me a more recent lynching where the person called the police and gave them a play-by-play of what they were about to do before they lynched. That's the antithesis of lynching. I'm not going to let the police know where I'm at, right? Especially if I want to get away with the shit. Okay? So he calls the police. 911, what's your emergency? And I urge you, fuck Mike Brown, right? Screw me. Got it. Screw me. Okay. Oh, Kenneth, I agree with you. Zimmerman is a piece of shit, but that doesn't mean that rises to the level of criminality. Okay. So here we go. 911, what's your emergency? Yeah, I'm following this person who's, walking through and looking rather suspicious. And, of course, I'm paraphrasing the 911 call. But I'm going to get to the part that triggered black folks. They always get away. Oh, shit. It's like saying, what do you mean, you people? No, fool. Burglars do always get away. I've responded to many a residential burglary and commercial burglary call where the person who committed the burglary was not there. They do get away. But when you got emotional ass folk, they couldn't get the facts. They were, who the fuck do you mean, you people? Who is they? So let's continue. Giving you a play-by-play. Guess who else was on the phone? Trayvon was on the phone. But instead of him calling 911, we parents don't teach our kids to call 911 because fuck the police. I got it. But see, you can still say fuck the police. You can still not like the police and teach your kids the appropriate time where it just makes sense to call. That would have been one of those times. I don't know how many of you all watched it, the difference between young Trayvon and Fat George, which was not the reality at all. George at the time of that incident was small, and Trayvon at the time of that incident was 6'1", 6'2", skinny kid. I know some juveniles shorter than him who will give some of you adults watching a hell of a go, whooping your ass for your money. Say less. Let's continue. Trayvon's on the phone with his girlfriend. I don't know what good she's going to do when she's not able to protect you. What she going to do, send the power of love and prayer? It's not going to work. So George continues to follow, and the dispatcher is on the record in saying, while the police is on the way, while I'm following him, oh, we don't need you to do that. That's suggestive. Not a direct order, and not a direct order that any civilian has to follow. We don't need you to do that. I want you to understand that every state give its citizens with limited and sometimes accelerated elements, in essence, the power of arrest. Okay. So George, for all intents and purposes, was within his civil right to follow Trayvon. And if Trayvon was the little kid as projected by the gotcha media, I know that you kind of heard that from some Republican former presidential candidate, but I'm just telling you, they get us, right? If he was this little kid, why wasn't this little kid running? Ho! Ho! I'm scared. Oh! Just imagine, just in me doing that right now. So many people probably heard me screaming and wondering what the hell is going on. You see how much that screaming created enough attention? How many of the neighbors would have woken up and saw potentially what was going on? After all, this is a gated community. Nosy motherfucker. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we're going to continue this because there's a lesson in this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
WIFTVPN.
The neighbor who was directly behind us had a real problem coming outside seeing my white mother and my black father.
We got us the gun line.
This dude built an 8-foot fence, more like 10 foot.
So they put up the Huck Finn joint.
Exactly. That shit looked like a castle. You know, my dad, he's a big guy, football player guy. My dad guy who walks over there.
Old school
and then
black.
he's like, yo, I don't appreciate these apples in my yard. He's like, motherfucker, we don't even have an apple tree. These are your apples.
Do you like apples?
Your kids are throwing apples over here. Okay, there's that little space, but there's still a fence. So they're right there looking at each other.
Tell them about the gun line, boss.
And I said something like, yeah, Dad. And that dude said, shut up, you little monkey. Leroy stuck his head over the fence.
You're gonna die, clown!
Grabbed dude by the neck.
Run.
And proceeded to pull him halfway over this fence. Like, finish him. Mrs. Wheeler comes running out. Oh, Leroy, don't do that. It's not worth it. Blah, blah, blah. My dad was getting ready to kill this dude. And within 6 months, that guy moved away.
Don't cross the gun line, boss.
Right, the gun line, boss.
Chicago Famous, 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, right here on What's in It for the Black People Media.
Shop at Black-owned and operated Solo Beauty, where you are appreciated and respected. Located at 8158 South Cottage Grove, Solo Beauty can supply all of your black hair care needs. Solo Beauty is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Tuesday through Saturday, or you can find them online at solobeauty.com.
WIFTVPN.
Live from What's in It for the Black Media Studio.
And so, my fellow Americans, I have a dream.
You're listening to Trigger.
You want to crown them? Then crown their ass. I ain't scared of you, mother.
The one and only.
Mike Brown.
My calculations are correct.
Let's begin.
All right, we're back. Here we go. For those of y'all just joining us, we're talking about the difference between civil law and criminal law. We were talking about Breonna Taylor in the case, and now we're focusing kind of on why George Zimmerman was found not guilty. Okay, and we're going to go more into this now. Just reading some of the comments on the break, one commenter said, he had no business following Trayvon. Tell that to some of your parents and some of you when y'all stuck your nose in our business and you had no business. Wait a minute. I thought it took a village to raise a child. Oh. Well, not that kind of village, Mike. We talking about the black village. Save that shit. The village is who's there, right? And if Trayvon were my son, right, I'd be like, hey, son, love you. I know you live in ATL where the players play, but here they don't play that shit all day, okay? So you got to do things just a little bit differently. Why? People's perception is their reality, and sometimes they don't view us in the same light. They don't see us in the same fashion, if that's the case, right? So you got to carry yourself a little bit differently. Well, why do I have to do that, Dad? Because that's the damn cards that you're dealt, my son. That's the cards that we're dealt, and the goal is to win. So we might have to play our hand just a little bit differently. How about that? So in playing this, let's continue. Because why would George call the police if he had intention on killing somebody? Why not, just not call the police and shoot Trayvon in the back? I mean, that's a good one, right? Why shoot him in the chest? You want to see the whites of his eyes, right? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Who knows? So he continues, right? Telling the police where he is, giving them a play-by-play. And then Trayvon takes off running. And what does George do? George runs after him, right? And so we don't know what happened during that time, right? There's some people that says, well, there was a call that George was screaming, and then there are some that was saying where it's Trayvon screaming. We don't know because there is no video. There are no witnesses as to what occurred. But let's look at the science. Okay. Trayvon Martin was shot one time center of mass in the chest. George Zimmerman received multiple lacerations, bruises, and contusions to the back of his head. Okay, these were used at trial. And so, in my time in investigating homicides, violent and other way, I guess that there are differences in homicides, right? And in my time currently and previously as a firearms instructor, and understanding human behavior and what people do under the physiological and psychological stress of losing their life or that fear that they're about to lose their life, you begin to look at things, right? So it was said that Trayvon, as Alvin E. Norton says, he had no business confronting. Look at the word in the middle. Take out the con and take out the ing, and you've got front. How did Trayvon Martin get shot in his chest if he was not a part of that confrontation? If you're running from someone and you're scared of this white Ku Klux Klan member who has every intention on killing him, a boy, right? Why would you step into an arena that you may not be familiar with? Like I said, I know some kids, some kids in your house watching that will give you some go. That's why you don't discipline them, right? So I'm not going to give Trayvon Martin a pass. I'm not going to, right? I can say he wasn't a burglar. There's nothing in his background doing the victimology to suggest that he was a burglar. But I'm not going to give him a pass just that far away, okay? And so I believe that Trayvon Martin was giving George Zimmerman the business. I believe that just like, some of the commenters are angry about what occurred, I believe Trayvon Martin knocked George Zimmerman on his back and was smashing his head in the ground for following him like many of our kids in the hood would do to somebody who tried them. And what happened in the midst of that gun fell out of George Zimmerman's pocket. It probably wasn't secured. It was in some little pocket holster or something like that. And so if I'm beating the shit out of somebody and I see that gun on the ground, I'm probably thinking that the person who, I'm beating the shit out of, they don't grab that gun. And if I'm getting my ass pummeled, but then that gun hits the floor and I'm aware that gun has hit the floor, that's my reprieve. That's my last minute attempt to do something to save me from this ass whooping that I'm getting. So I believe that there was a struggle for that gun, and that in the midst of that struggle, he was shot one time. Why is that? Come on now. A scared person who knows they're getting their ass whooped, they're not just going to shoot one time. They're not just going to shoot one time. After all, you don't know if what you did worked. They're going to dump that gun. They're going to dump they're going to dump that magazine. They're going to dump those 10 rounds into that person. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. So when he got to trial, I wouldn't be surprised if this was, or wouldn't be surprised if you read the trial transcripts and you paid attention to the trial, this was used as a part of that defense. And in fact, it was. Now, granted, he couldn't cite stand your ground. Florida is a state known for stand your ground. And I'm going to tell you the difference between the two. In stand your ground, and we've seen other stand your ground cases, and people think stand your ground just automatically means shoot a black person. That's subjective. I leave that to you. Stand your ground is a separate defense that pretty much means if you reasonably believe that you are about to lose your life or you're in some kind of fear of death or great bodily harm, you need not retreat. Illinois is a duty to retreat state. Okay. Other states like Indiana, Florida, right? Florida, there are stand your ground state. Alabama's a stand your ground state. Okay. And so they need not retreat, but they can stand their ground. And so we're going to talk about another case. We're talking about that Marissa Alexander case because we definitely got time. That was another case in Florida right around the same time where stand your ground didn't work for her. What did we learn the lessons from that Marissa Alexander case? Okay. Go on ahead and Google it. Those of you all who are watching, because we're going to talk about it. Okay. Stand your ground. George Zimmerman couldn't cite stand your ground because in that situation, he put himself there. It didn't happen upon him. He put himself there. He was following. Now just imagine, let's digress for just a small minute and ask this question. If we had more people in our communities, think about your block where you live. Remember that time that, and I'm an 80s baby, so I remember that time. Remember that time you couldn't make it to the end of the doggone block before you had somebody in that block who was all in your business. They were concerned about you. They wanted to know if you were okay. How's your mama? How's your daddy? Right? What you doing? Hey, stop doing that. I'm gonna whoop your ass. I'm gonna take you to your mom. I'm gonna take you to your dad. We don't have that now. Because truth be told, even some of you all watching, you're fucking afraid of the kids on your block. You know if you say something out of pocket, they'll mark your whole house for death. And you ain't ready to die behind that shit to protect your community. So you couldn't possibly understand the idea of a George Zimmerman and making a citizen's arrest because you don't even arrest the people in your house that cause the police to come to your house. Silent on that. Triggered as fuck. Let's continue. So George, gets found not guilty. He can't use stand your ground, so they're not allowed to use that. That's a pretrial motion, something that's, motioned up before the courts, before we get to trial. Okay, and it's used as a defense. Again, two separate analysis. You have the analysis of stand your ground, and then the analysis of the force used in that standing. So you got stand your ground. Do I have a duty to retreat? And then a separate analysis as to what type of force can I use? And typically, the law across the United States is you are only authorized to use deadly force. I'll give you Illinois law, Chapter 720, Illinois Compiled Statutes, Act 5, Section 7-1. Okay? A person is authorized to use force, okay, or in defense of one person, a person is justified in using force when and to the extent that he reasonably believes that such conduct is necessary to defend himself against such others imminent, and the word imminent, adjective, meaning it's about to happen, imminent use of unlawful force. However, he is justified in using force which is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm only when he reasonably believes that such force is necessary to present or prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself, another, or to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. Okay. Not my words. That's the Illinois law, word for word, 720 ILCS 5 7-1. And if you look at that same use of force or the justification for force across the states, plus or minus some words, maybe a little tweaking, all the same. All the same. Okay. Except there's the stand your ground provision. You need not retreat. Okay. That force used can be your first option. Okay. And in that analysis, you've got what is right, reason, right, and reasonable. Reason. We all got a reason to do something to somebody, right? I don't like what you said. Fuck you up. I'm sure some of y'all want to do that to me. I get it. Triggered as fuck. I get it, right? And then is it right? What does the law say, right? And then is that reasonable? The reasonableness of actions have very little to do with what you thought. In part it does, right? But in other part, it has everything to do with what society will allow, So in using that analysis, would society allow, and I'm not talking about just the black community, right? Because what we allow and what other people allow, that's a separate analysis right there, right? Would society allow a person who was accosted when all they were doing was just being nosy and following? Let's talk facts. I'm not talking about your belief in terms of whether or not a person had a right or a reason or a duty to walk after someone and suspect them of doing certain things. Now, you got some Karens out there. I get that. They'll just call the police on black folks. I'm not talking about that dumb shit. But in looking at this thing called profiling, and I teach this when I teach my classes, right? Can we reasonably and non-emotionally say that burglars wear hoodies? Yes. Not all. But can we reasonably say that they might wear a pair of jeans? Yes. Can we reasonably say that there have been burglars who were black? Yes. can we reasonably say that there have been burglars who have taken shortcuts in between people's houses for the specific purpose of casing or looking into someone's house to find which one is properly easily or easier, if you will, to break into? Yes. So by those very facts, is it reasonable to assume, given the crime that was going on in that area, and in the nation perhaps, residential burglary, can we reasonably assume that he had a reason to suspect? Yes. So was he wrong in following him? Not according to the law, no. And just imagine if we had people today that would do that very same thing in our communities. Think about the block that you are on. There are blocks today that we can't even go on. Y'all know what I'm talking about? You remember the time during the riots, right? When all our shit was destroyed, thanks to your goddamn cousins, right? And you tried to take your ass to the Mexican neighborhood. Or you tried to take your ass to Bridgeport. And they told you, fuck on. You're not coming over here. In the barrio, we take care of ours. You're not coming over here to get our shit after you done let your people burn your shit. And I can't blame them. You can get mad at me all day. They not about to allow it. You remember that time during the doggone Joshua Beals incident some few years back where he was in a gang type funeral? He was an Indiana resident, and they drove from Mount Hope Cemetery down 111th Street towards Kedzie, and they got to the firehouse, and there was a traffic-related incident with a pedestrian who just happens to be a Chicago police officer and a firefighter got into an incident, and Joshua Beals, an Indiana resident, pulled out his firearm and got shot by a Chicago police officer. You remember the time where you had a certain type of protesters whose name I will not say went over to Mount Greenwood and tried to bring up the ideas of racism? And what did the Mount Greenwood community do? They stood up. You stirred up the hornet's nest. And you had all kinds of people out there on the corner of 111th and Kedzie because you wanted to bring a protest to their neighborhood. And they said, wait a minute. You're not about to bring that shit here. No, the fuck you not. And in one voice, they stood up and said no. You got so angry about the racism and you missed the picture of standing together as a neighborhood. You think they don't have beef in their own neighborhood? Of course the McGillicuddies and the O'Connors got issues and one don't like each other because Principal Shaq Hennessy suspended the other one, right? You got issues in their neighborhood. They do. But on that day, those issues died. They stood up together and said, take your ass back to your side. You're not bringing that shit here. Just imagine if we had that in our communities. Just imagine if we had Zimmermans on our block who just at least paid attention and saw us and looked out for us. More to come when we come back.
WIFTBPM.
This secure moment is brought to you by Secure Home and Automation, your premier authorized Bring security dealer. Home invasions occur every 23 seconds, fire every 85 seconds, and medical emergencies occur suddenly. In times like these, get secured home and automation and an affordable wireless home alarm system with professional monitoring. This includes fast emergencies response, free security analysis, free equipment, and free installation. A limited time offer, be proactive. Call today, don't delay. 708-251-5069. That's 708-251-5069. Call now, 708-251-5069, or visit our website, securehomeandautomation.com. Secure Home and Automation, where your life safety is our priority. It brings authorized dealers, certain restrictions apply.
When you
need vibrant, colorful gear that offers high-performance material that keeps you cool? Call Agent Huff Custom Gear. Let us take your expressions and create something new for your everyday wear, your bedroom, or bath. For all your needs, we offer custom sublimation, silkscreen, vinyl, and embroidery. You can reach us on all things social at Superhero Huff. www.superherohuff.com or 630-476-9191.
Shop at Black-owned and operated Solo Beauty, where you are appreciated and respected. Located at 8158 South Cottage Grove, Solo Beauty can supply all of your black hair care needs. Solo Beauty is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday, or you can find them online at solobeauty.com.
The neighbor who was directly behind us had a real problem coming outside seeing my white mother and my black father.
We got us the gun line.
This dude built an 8-foot fence, more like 10 foot.
So they put up the Huck Finn joint.
Exactly. That shit looked like a castle. You know, my dad, he's a big guy, football player guy. My dad guy who walks over there.
Old school
and then
black.
he's like, I don't appreciate these apples in my yard. He's like, motherfucker, we don't even have an apple tree. These are your apples.
Do you like apples?
Your kids are throwing apples over here. Okay, there's that little space, but there's still a fence. So they're right there looking at each other.
Tell them about the gun line, boss.
And I said something like, yeah, Dad. And that dude said, shut up, you little monkey. Leroy stuck his head over the fence.
You're gonna die, clown!
Grabbed dude by the neck.
Run.
And proceeded to pull him halfway over this fence. Like,
Finish him.
Mrs. Wheeler comes running out.
oh, Leroy, don't do that. It's not worth it. Blah, blah, blah.
My dad was getting ready to kill this dude. And within 6 months, that guy moved away.
Don't cross the gun line, boss.
Right, the gun line, boss.
Chicago Famous, 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, right here on What's in It for the Black People Media.
WIIFTBPM.
Live from What's in It for the Black Media Studio.
And so, my fellow Americans, I have a dream.
You're listening to Trigger.
You want to crown him? Then crown their ass. I ain't scared of you, mother.
The one and only.
Mike Brown.
My calculations are correct.
Let's begin.
All right, here we go. We are back. What's in it for the Black People Media Network with Instructor Mike Brown and Triggered. We're back. And don't forget, if you're watching by YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're watching on Facebook, go on ahead and like the Maze Jackson page and go on ahead and hit those stars. Those stars enable the Maze Jackson page and What's in It for the Black People Media Network. It helps them to produce continuous great content. If you like this commentary, hell, even if you hate it, I'm fine with that too. Shit. People like to like what they hear instead of learning from what they've heard. Okay? As General Colin Powell said, separate your ego from your position so that when your position falls, your ego doesn't fall with it. That's how people get hurt when they can't stand it. They lost a doggone argument, okay? If you like content like this with Chicago Famous, Mike Love and Diz, I said what I said, Herb Howard and Toussaint Warner, the Book of Dawn, other great programming, The Bigs, go on and hit those stars. Those stars help support great content. You got to support those that support you. All right, let's get back. I'm trying to piss you off. Some of y'all drinking tea, wiping your eyebrow. Can't wait till I say the next thing that triggers you. Here we go. Let's continue. I think some people took certain things out of context when I say certain things. Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? What do I mean, are we ready? Well, I've seen a great degree of people getting firearms and purchasing all kinds of firearms. Oh my God, you should see what people have been purchasing AR-15s and shotguns and little pumes and hit them with the fofo. Yeah, I see y'all got your little fofos and everything, right? And then you go to the range and, you done hit your bullets on a piece of paper and shit. Hashtag, motherfucker, I'm ready. Let Tyrone try it again, right? But are you ready? Are you ready? That was a topic of conversation. Shouts out to Herb Howard and Toussaint Warner on I Said What I Said. That was a topic of conversation yesterday, and I think it was taken out of context, right? Let me tell you something about me. I love being black. Some of y'all like, shit, I can't tell. Look, I love being black. I love the fact that I come from a line of ancestry where death was real. Death was real. And if you've never been in a situation where you are fighting for your life, I ain't talking about you lost, you're about to lose your job and you're fighting for that, or that's a career death or a financial death. I'm talking about death, like flatline death. If you've never been in that kind of situation, you might not really understand that feeling of understanding that type of motivation where shit, you about to die anyway, so why not go balls to the wall? That's what I'm done. That type of death. And I just can't help but look at my studies and, of the civil rights movement, and even times before then where shit, we were dying already. So why not fight for this thing called freedom? I just got through seeing my friend get lynched and hung from a tree, and, houses burned and bombed and shit. Why not band together and walk down that doggone bridge knowing that there's a cavalcade of police officers on horses and on foot, knowing we about to get our ass whooped, but we dying anyway. So why not fight for this thing called freedom, for the right to exist in this space, for the right to be able to walk where I need to walk and go where I need to go, where, police brutality was even more the reality than the narrative that is greatly pushed. And so looking at things now, some of y'all still triggered because 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse went to Wisconsin from Antioch, Illinois. The hell is he doing in Kenosha, Wisconsin, trying to protect some property? Just like somebody said George Zimmerman had no right to follow Trayvon, but don't say shit about the people from out of town who helped those in the 9th Ward in Hurricane Katrina. Or you selective on the kind of help that you want to get, right? You're mad because you saw little Kyle go down there with that rifle and shoot 3 people, none of whom were black. But now all of a sudden you got empathy for white folks, right? So are we ready? Are we ready? What are your 17-year-olds doing right now besides popping pills, Xanax, and lean? Are they in the range training? Are they at outdoor ranges training? Are they training in the rain, training in the snow, training in the mud, training in the sun? Are they training for this thing? Because, saying something 1,000 times is not the same thing as living it once. Do you even have the mindset for this thing called violence? Kyle definitely had firearm instruction. Look, I was impressed when I was impressed, right? No more than I would continuously be impressed when I saw Kyle get attacked by those skateboarders and he did a nice little hondo roll, a nice little combat roll, and shot from a seated position one person in the chest and one person in the arm and got back up as though nothing ever happened. Some of your kids can't even play basketball with a damn ankle sprain. And I know you hate hearing the truth. I know it triggers you, but that's something you really need to take into consideration. How trained are you even as a professional firearms instructor, right? As a professional firearms instructor, I see human behavior. I see the psychology of how people act under stress. And if you ever really want to understand that, go to the range. Go to the range, okay? And if you're allowed to just sit there and watch, the one I typically go to is Eagle Sports Range. Shouts out to Eagle Sports Range, 5900 West 159th Street in Oak Forest, Illinois. Go there for all your firearm needs. Yep. Go there and sit and just watch people shoot. Watch their hand placement. Watch their thumb placement. Watch their stance. Watch what they do. Hell, some people can't even get over the sound of the gunfire, right? You get a rifle, you go on the rifle range, or you go, and just watch people shoot a rifle with no optic. And it seems to be that it's very coonish, if you will, to tell people you're not ready. Or is it? What's the problem with being told you're not ready? Oh, you thought just because you got a gun and you got a little bit of training that you're ready. I have a concealed carry class that I just had, and I told them, I teach what I teach and I know what I know. And I don't give them a bunch of stories because this is not the Instructor Mike hour where I'm telling you about my experiences, entirely and what I've been, because you didn't pay to hear that shit. You paid for me to teach you the skill of survival. And unlike CPR where you're saving someone else's life, concealed carry is about saving your life. So you don't need to hear my stories. You need to create some of your own, mainly the conflict avoidance. And if you have to do it, you do it and see it through. But when I begin to talk about some of the things that, come, or I begin to teach them some of the skills, you'd be surprised. The fears that people have in their mind in terms of what the gun does. You do understand that while you're starting to see more black folks starting to carry firearms and starting to exercise the Second Amendment rights, you're starting to see certain things such as this, the marijuana legislation that comes into play that tends to block people from being able to get it. You got to decide weed or guns. You got to decide that. Right. Some people I've even had to turn away from training. They hate being told no, because I recognize in human behavior that some people are starting to carry guns because of their insecurities that they won't deal within themselves. You're tired of getting your ass whooped by all these men, so you decide that now is the time for you to carry a gun instead of changing some of the things within you that motivate and accelerate the possibility of you becoming a victim of crime. You don't change the address of the ass whooping. You just, think that having a gun is going to do certain things better or make certain things better. Is that the truth? I don't know. My guess is no. So are we ready? Are we ready? And that's a question that only you can really answer for yourself. Are you ready? What is the level of training that you've put yourself through? Why are you triggered when I even ask you that question? Because you're being triggered by that question is the very essence of the readiness that you are not. And is it a position of strength to accept, not necessarily accept, but to take that analysis of someone else telling you that you're not ready in order to get ready? Some people hate being told no. They hate being told no. No could be the thing that could save you from danger that you don't see, right? There's times that I will tell a person, no, you're not ready. And they'll get pissed off and write a 1-star review or write something on whatever my platforms are for reviews and feel that's going to affect my business. I give a fuck about that review. I really could give a shit about that review. Because my job is to make sure that you survive. That, to me, is the greatest review. I could give a damn about Google or anything else. My job is to make sure that when that time comes, that you're probably not expecting because you're not paying attention, right? When that time comes, you are able to pull that trigger. When that time comes, you are able to defend yourself in an appropriate fashion, quickly, efficiently, effectively, with the understanding that you could be killed too. You do understand this. There is no such thing as a death-proof use of force option. There's no such thing as if I use this gun, I'm definitely going to live. There's no such thing as that. The United States Marine Corps has a saying, everybody wants to go to heaven. No one wants to die. And that could be the reason why we don't have a lot of George Zimmermans in our community. You think he didn't think that Trayvon couldn't have had a gun? He possibly could have had a gun on him. What if Trayvon did have a gun on him? You think George would have been dead? You think he would have had the courage enough to pull that trigger? Maybe, maybe not. We will never know. We will never know. because we don't always teach our kids when they're young about guns. You'll be surprised. I got a picture of my son when he was younger. He saw me putting together my curriculum and stuff like that and doing some things with the guns. And he had a little old school kind of Western revolver, little small toy. And I was like, son, just stand there with your finger on the trigger and have the muzzle near your face. Some of y'all are looking up what the word muzzle means, right? Muzzle near your face. And now thousands of people have seen his face in this curriculum. And so people are like, when I tell them, what's the problem with this picture? I hear it. I do these things because I want to get the response. And I hear it. Well, the problem is he's a baby with the gun. See, that mindset right there, that is already the problem. It's already the problem. Instead of teaching your child about firearms ownership and responsibility with that firearm, we're so afraid of the gun. And I understand where it comes from, right? We don't come across guns until maybe it's used towards you in a negative manner, or you're a victim of a crime, or maybe somebody in your family knows about guns and teaches you about guns. And then you learn about it. You learn about being responsible with that gun. And so you're not afraid of it because you understand what can happen with that gun. You understand that? I urge you to get the book from Tim Larkin. From Tim Larkin, When Violence is the Answer. When Violence is the Answer. I urge you to get that book. When you think about the word violence, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? Some of you are like, well, angry, upset, hurt, all the negative things based upon the narrative that's pushed to us about violence comes to mind. And then when I change the question, well, why are you willing to use it? I'm willing to use it because I don't want to die. I'm willing to use it because I'm afraid. I'm willing to use it to protect my family. So when you understand the why, the definition of violence happens to change. And then when you begin to understand that, it's not what you see on TV. It's quicker. Sometimes the perception that it's slower, this phenomenon called tachypsychia, right? When you begin to understand it and you begin to study it, because it is a science, right? Then it'll help you feel psychologically better when you have to use it. See, you saw that George Floyd incident, and you see or you hear 45 or President Donald John Trump, and you hear his name. Some of y'all just triggered at the sound of his name. Triggered. You see white people, the 3%ers, standing up and deciding to defend themselves, or in some cases be antagonists. And you decide that you want to get a gun when the real threat could possibly be somebody who looks like you. You think Mr. Sklarowitz is coming on the block to stop you from going to your job? Remember the bus stop incident on 103rd in the Roseland community where the young lady was trying to get on the bus to go to work? You think it was Timothy O'Connor, O'Toole, Shaughnessy, Martin, using all the names, who was trying to stop her from going to do what she had to do to feed her family? No, it was one of us. You think she had time to think about the systemic racism and the caste system that may make something like that possible? No, she pulled that damn trigger. And he ran away and collapsed on a staircase down the street and died from his injuries. All your political theories and all that bullshit goes out the window when it's time for you to defend yourself. Are you ready for what you may have to do? And is the person teaching you what you need to know and not stroking your ego? I want you to understand there's a difference between police training and the lack thereof, I admit, and even civilian training. Because if police training is horrible, civilian training can't be better, or can it? We'll talk about that when we come back. And the mic is still hot. All right, we're back. We're back. All right, so let's continue. Okay, let's continue. You know, like I said, I received a letter, and I saw a letter from the Illinois State Police. I really want you to understand that one of the ways that they got us was during this marijuana legislation. Oh, my gentle Jesus. And as soon as I heard that it was coming out, I was like, yep, that's how they gonna get us, right? You started to see all the black folk going to get guns. And what did they do? We gonna make marijuana legal. We gonna make it to where you could sell it. Because after all, you know, the war on drugs, we can call it a failed war, which it was a failure of a war, right? The war on drugs, you know, the next thing you know, it's a situation where, shit, we don't have to be drug dealers now. We can go on ahead and get the licenses and get the permits and be able to do it legal. And as a person who doesn't consume that stuff, I'm like, yeah, but you're not going to be able to own a gun. So you got to kind of pick your poison. You can't sit there and say, you know, fuck the police on one side, but then there's an issue that still spawns the necessity for police because you're not going to protect yourself because you're not willing to die. You're not willing to die to go out there and do the job for yourself. Never mind for the community, even though you should be about the community too. But you're not thinking about them. You're thinking about yourself. So the police protection is still needed. And there's concealed carry, which will enable you to at least be able to meet deadly force with deadly force. Right? But you want to get high. So I received a letter from the Illinois State Police because somebody applied for their a firearm. All right. And the letter came from the Illinois State Police, and it stated that your firearm transaction number, you know, I'm not going to say the firearm transaction number. That's not what's important, but it has been denied. You are federally prohibited from purchasing or possessing firearms or ammunition for the reasons below. According to Title 18 United States Code, Section 922 G3, persons who are unlawful users or addicted to any controlled substance, and the evidence being addicted to or medical cannabis license, valid patient. You understand you won't be able to get your concealed carry license. I mean, you won't be able to actually possess the gun until 1 year after that medical license or 1 year after, you know, any type of proof that you are a user of marijuana. And so what people don't understand is this. Let me explain to you the process, more so the approval process. So concealed carry licenses are the exclusive properties of the state because the state has the right to, you know, set their own laws in terms of licensing because you're licensed under the laws of the state, just like your driver's license. Okay. And so in the state of Illinois, the Illinois State Police is the administrative agency that regulates the Concealed Carry Act, which is Chapter 430 Illinois Compiled Statutes Act 66. The FOID, or the Firearms Owners Identification Card Act, is Act 65. Okay. But firearms possession and transferring, when you go pick that firearm up, from an actual gun store, or when you purchase it from a private to private transaction, right? Those are the exclusive rights and properties, in essence, of the federal government. Okay. When you go into the gun store and you seek to purchase a firearm, the sales transaction, right? That stuff is regulated through the states, but the approval of the transferring of that metal, that piece of equipment, that firearm, that tool, it has to go through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms through the Illinois State Police. Okay. You then fill out the ATF Form 4473, and on there, they ask you the question, are you addicted to or a user of narcotics? And while it may be lawful at the state level, because marijuana is legal in the state of Illinois, it is still a Schedule I narcotic at the federal level, right? Now, there is some talk, sidebar, that it's supposed to be signed into law that's going to be legalized at the federal level. I have heard no such talk, but just because I haven't heard it doesn't make it that it's not so. But you do understand that if it is signed into law, that's a Trump initiative. You hate that name already. I get it. Whatever, right? But until then, it's still a Schedule I narcotic. So guess what, Mike? I'm not a medical marijuana patient. So I could use up to 29 grams personally, have it on my person, right? And I could still get that gun, right? I could still lie to the federal government, and I can tell them that I am not addicted to any kind of, marijuana or anything like that. I'm not a medical marijuana patient. Remember the time where you were arrested for it? If you've ever been arrested for it, right? They could use your background against you. I want you to understand that the state government isn't going to deny you because they legalized it, but the federal government will get you. What do you want? You want to blame the system for your addiction, I guess? Which is it, weed, or you want to die high? Which is it? Somebody please tell me. And how long have people been saying, such as myself and other people who have been putting out information regarding this, how long have we been saying this is a part of the trap? We see you deciding to stand up against oppression or racism or whatever your reasoning is for carrying a gun. We see that, and we raise you what your people love to do, and that's get high. We see that too. We're going to go on ahead and legalize it because, you're in your emotions already. And we're going to go on ahead and get you that soother of your emotions. How many times have you heard a person say, marijuana just makes you relax and makes you hungry and makes you, just tell all your cares, just fuck it for today. And then you get high. And then there's a home invasion. Oh, shit, what am I going to do? Grab the gun. Shit, I ain't got it. What are you going to do? Oh, shit, that's when it gets real. Pass the blunt. You better. Man, I don't know. Are we ready? What do you think? You say you feel attacked. I want to read some of your comments. Okay, I want to read some of your comments. I've been saying a lot of things. Hope you've been learning a lot from, what I've been trying to teach you. That's the only thing that I want to do is trigger you so that you can do things differently. Okay. Until I see some of your comments come across, we're going to talk about the concealed carry process. Okay. So for those of you all in Illinois who seek to get your concealed carry licenses, by now you should have had pen and paper so we can go on ahead and write those things down. There are certain things that prohibit you from becoming a concealed carry licensee, basically age 21 years of age or older. no felony background, regardless. And I'm not talking about felony arrest, okay? Even though you should get that expunged. For those of you all who are trying to get your records expunged, not sealed. Sealed means it still exists. The public can't see it. I'm talking about expunged, where it's totally gone except for, the records at the courthouse or with the Circuit Court of Cook County. But for those of you all with felony arrest, get that expunged. Go to see the people at Cabrini Green Legal Aid. Cabrini Green Legal Aid, or even the clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County. I think Dorothy Brown is still the clerk, I believe. But go see them and try to get your record expunged. Trust me, it'll pay off in the long run. You have to go through a 16-hour course. Stop going through these damn courses where, you get that hookup. Okay, you got your friend who got his concealed carry license, instructor, and he's ready to teach you, and he's only just going to go ahead and take you to the range and teach you how to shoot, and after teaching you how to shoot, little pew, and then after that, you get your license, and you don't have to, go through the rest of that stuff. If the Illinois State Police ever gets wind of that, your license will be revoked. You will have to go through the training again. You're going to be pissed off because it's going to be a minute before you get your license back. Do it the right way. Sit through 16 hours of that class. Any instructor worth their salt has way more than 16 hours to teach you. Way more than 16 hours to teach you. In fact, any instructor worth their salt will tell you 16 hours is still just enough, where if all you got is that 16 hours, you're going to get killed. Sorry, okay? 16 hours is not enough, but 16 hours is the standard. And in fact, 16 hours is more than most states, okay, that only require an 8-hour course. Why? Because they know that white people are going to go get more training. Shh, did I just say that on What's in It for the Black People Radio? How dare you say that we are not going to get training? Ha ha! Yes, they know that white people are going to get more training, and they know you not. So go get training. Quit playing with your life. 16 hours is just a solid foundation, okay? After that 16-hour course, you need to have a valid state ID or driver's license. With that valid state ID or driver's license, it needs to have the correct address, okay? And then you go on ahead and you apply online, Illinois State Police. Go to www.isp, as in Paul, FSB, as in boy.com. Go and apply for your FOID card. Do you want me to, look, the trickery that just got passed, well, it didn't get passed, but almost got passed in the House. I think the legislative history I might be sketchy on, but I think it passed in one house of the state legislature, and it didn't pass any other because of time constraints. It didn't meet the time burden. But FOID cards right now are $11. Okay, you can go to ispfsb.com and apply. They were going to be higher. Why? Because the state was going to make it to where you had to be fingerprinted to get your FOID card and your Illinois concealed carry license. And this is in the wake of the Henry Platt active shooter incident in Aurora, Illinois, where a gentleman, or a man, black man, by the way, you know that whole thing, well, we don't do active shooting stuff. That's not true. Don't do a lot of it, but when we do it, it happens, okay? Henry Platt, where he went in, got fired from his job, went back in, decided to shoot up the HR person and 4 others. Long standoff, bunch of police responded. They shot him. I think a shootout occurred, and they did kill him inside of there. Well, he would not have had a legally possessed firearm had the state police not had certain loopholes in their process. And so because of that, they had to fix the FOID Act, where right now it's $11. So even your grandmother can own a gun legally. She don't have to have concealed carry. Just $11. Get the FOID card. Get her some training. Okay, so that way when she tell your ass get off the grass and you don't, she knows she can't shoot you because you get it. All right, but $11. FOID card. Okay, and then after that FOID card, you purchase the firearm, stuff like that. And they were going to make it where you had to get fingerprinted, and the FOID card was going to cost somewhere between $35 and $50 just for that FOID card. Okay, that legislation has not been passed, so it's still $11. Now, we don't know what type of trickery they are going to, do again, because that legislation was produced, I think it was during Labor Day of last year, while you all were fattening it up in the barbecue and shit. It's your 4-day weekend. They were in session trying to bring stuff to pass, and it didn't happen. Okay? That's when it gets you, right? The itis. When you got itis, something else is being passed. Okay? So get your concealed carry license. You need to get trained. You need to get trained. Those of you who have backgrounds, again, go to Cabrini Green Legal Aid. You need to get your background expunged. People fail for the lack of knowledge. People miss out on opportunities because things that could be expunged or sealed, you don't even try. You don't keep up with timelines. Get that stuff expunged. Get that stuff expunged. Okay? Get that stuff expunged. All right, so we're going to take a break, and then we will come back with Triggered with Instructor Mike on What's in It for the Black People Media. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back with Trigger with Instructor Mike. Again, I'm your host, Instructor Mike. We've had a pretty awesome show today. Triggering folks, per usual. Okay. We've been talking about Breonna Taylor and the difference between civil law and criminal law and the different standards of proof. Talking about, are we ready? That is definitely a conversation that we need to continuously have. We need to continuously have, and I'm going to ask that question until we do what we need to do to make sure that we are ready to continuously defend ourselves against threats close, from afar, whatever the case may be. Okay. Talked about concealed carry issues, certain things regarding medical marijuana or just marijuana in general, and the trickery that that stuff produces and brings. But of course, I'm going to always go back to a subject that's definitely near and dear to my heart, and that's a lot of the issues that we have within ourselves that serve as the very choice motivators for the actions that we take as adults. I'm not just a firearms instructor, concealed carry instructor, former cop, military, all that stuff, whatever the case may be. But if you can endure the pain that you have gone through in your life, if you can endure that pain in your travels, you will find your purpose in the process. And I never thought I would ever be an author. That was not something that I intended on doing, but it is definitely something that my journey has brought me to. And in my collegiate studies in undergrad and in grad school, one of the things that I began to learn about was certain things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We talked about that a couple of shows ago, and talked about even Breonna Taylor and and not just her. We're not just going to keep on, saying her name in that respect, or in that, respect, but just other people who have fallen prey to the outcomes of the choices that they have made because of those choice motivators. And in that, one of the things that I learned is that, the road less traveled is to have after action reviews when we have certain high profile incidents of things that occurred in the media. People who have fallen, your Eric Garners, your Mike Browns, your, Tamir Rices, the Sandra Blands, the names that you will never forget. You will never forget these names. The Breonna Taylor. What lessons do we learn from these incidents? If insanity is repeating the same action and expecting a different outcome, then what is emotional insanity? What are we not doing that is different from what everyone else is doing? We talk about resources. We talk about the lack of investment or the perceived or even actual lack of investment in the South and West sides, and, always looking for someone else to, give us that handout or give us that thing. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but it's believed to be always the case that there is always a look for the handout. What is someone going to give us instead of what we give ourselves? And so that's why, I wrote the children's books that I did write. And it's a series, the What I Tell Myself, the series, but this one starts with what I tell myself first. Children's real world affirmations of self-esteem. And why did I decide to enter the children's book market? Because that's where it starts. That's where it starts. Examine yourself. 9 times out of 10, you are an exact copy or some form of a copy of your parent. Whether you choose to admit it or not, or whether you are not that now, at some point in time you were until you learned differently. And it starts with the affirmations that we need to tell ourselves based on the real world. I used to read certain affirmation books that had, I am great, I am light, I am great, I am bright, I am the sun, I am the moon, I am this too soon. I don't know, whatever. But that sometimes could inflate the ego of someone and make them just look at all the positive and not focus on any of the negative where there are lessons that can be learned from that. There's nothing wrong with achieving higher heights and going to deeper depths, but failure is a part of that recipe for success. Failure is a part of success if you learn from the failure. What did I learn? Being a survivor of child abuse, how many kids have come home, to butt whoopings from parents who didn't know how to teach their children? Is the child acting up in school, or are they learning, or is it the teacher that's not teaching them well? Well, self-actualization is at the top of this pyramid, and it's hard for the child to learn if the home environment is crappy. And so you, as a crappy parent, a beautiful person, great-hearted, great-minded, but your skills lacking, what is that doing toward your children's ability to effectively learn? And so, you hear certain arguments such as, school to prison pipeline and, failed schools and, principal such and such did this wrong. You've got it wrong. Vote for me. And now, okay, well, we hear the rhetoric, the narrative, but we're not holding these homes accountable. What are these homes doing? What are these parents doing? Some of you all are heavily politically connected. Why don't we have a parental accountability bill in the House and being passed in the Senate and signed into law? Because we don't want to hold the parents accountable. Because isn't that a kind of blaming the victim thing? And we don't want to blame the victim. In essence, we don't want to blame the parents because parents are votes. Right. And we need them to not know that they are the problem, because if they know that they are the problem, they may perhaps fix it. And then I can't keep on pulling the wool over their eyes, and they'll actually begin to pay attention to it. I may actually have to do my job as a politician and actually do the right thing. We can really answer that question, what's in it for the black people, if we take care of the black people in our homes. Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. What I tell myself first, children's real world affirmations of self-esteem. Man, endorsed by the National Anger Management Association. What I tell myself about self-protection, right? And then what I tell myself about talent. Got a few other books too. You know, of course, I'm going to always promote these books, not just because it's me, because these are the books that I wish I had when I was young. I'm sure you would have wished that you would have learned some of the things inside of this book, such as I like me. Not everyone's going to like me. That's okay. I like me. I'm going to read one thing from this because I think that's something that I'm just being led to just, push in that direction and just read that. I learn slow, so I will forget slow. I'm smart about what I know. I can learn more. I will learn more. I don't know everything. I won't know everything. I want to be right, but I can't always be right. If I am right, yay. If I'm not right, that's okay. I won't always be right. Failure is a part of success. If I learn from the failure, what did I learn? What I learned, I must teach another, a sister from another mister, or a brother from another mother. I can help others. Certain things as before I do anything, I must think first. 2 ears and 1 mouth. Hear more with less mouth. Some of y'all parents was like, hell yeah. I've been telling my son that all the time. Well, what if you read that to them every day? Every day. Some of us adults can learn from that stuff too. The time when you want to pop off at the mouth. I must wait till the right time to do things. I must speak when it's time. I must speak what is mine. Some of us have a hard time being told to stay in our place. Who the fuck are you telling me to stay in my place? Yeah, stay in your place. I'm telling you, it's hard for people to grasp some of these concepts because you didn't learn them when you were younger. I wish I had this book when I was younger. Wish I had it. Okay. So you can contact me directly if you want to pick up the books. You can also pick them up on Amazon.com. Just look up, What I Tell Myself, and you'll see the series of the books come up. I also have another book, an adult book, picture book called you ready for the title? You ready for the title? Here we go. Stuck in Fuck. The Aftermath of After Ass. How to Unfuck Your Parental Past. I'm glad we on internet radio. I don't think I could get away with saying stuff like this if it was a boy. We have to beep it, right? What is Stuck in Fuck about? Well, he ain't shit. He don't do what he's supposed to as a father. He don't do what he's supposed to as a this, as a that. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Well, shit, when you gonna tell me how long you been to fly? What do you mean? Yeah, because it's easy to continuously blame him. But what about you made a him possible? Because hurt people don't start off hurting people. Hurt people actually start off by joining up with another person who's hurt. They begin to share and swap stories, and they begin to share and swap weaknesses and strengths. And all the things that you don't do for yourself, those are insecurities. And those insecurities become crutches. And then when a child is born, responsibility kicks in, and that's when you start trading shots. You ain't shit. He ain't shit. You don't cook. You don't protect. You don't this. You don't that. And so now we got all these families who are bickering and arguing and fighting over the toxicity of their parents that was passed down to them. I know some of you listening to this stuff is like, man, you're not a kid anymore. You're an adult. So grow up and forget it. Oh, shit. You don't like it when white people tell you to forget about slavery, but you want to forget about the very thing that caused you to be the toxic adult that you refuse to admit that you are. How does that work? You can't have your cake or eat your cake and have it too. I'm going to keep on talking about this. I'm going to keep on talking about this ad nauseum until you just want to just kill me for it. Because some people hide their past from their children instead of teaching them about their past to save them from a past. Some of the things that you've done as an adult to try to bring your kids what they have, no wonder they grow up with insecurities because they attach to that material thing that you give to them. They attach security because that's all they have. You don't teach them about what they need to know about your past to save them from a past. Well, at some point in time, this stuff has got to change. And you're the one to change it. You're the one to change it. But you ain't changing nothing until you unfuck it. Yeah, that part. That part. All right. Yeah, I'm just saying. We're going to go on ahead and end today. I think today was still a good show, and we definitely ended on a great note. And I'm going to keep on talking about it. I'm going to keep on pushing. I got 3 more books coming out. Mommy, Daddy, Please Teach Me. Impatient Patience. And No. You know, I'm going to keep on writing books. Hell, even my books are triggering folks. My books are triggering folks so much to the point where when I sat there and said, you got to read some of these reviews. I must love me first. I must be selfish before I am selfless. Do you know just the saying that I must be selfish before I am selfless triggers some folks? Why would you teach a person to be selfish? Well, because when they were younger and all they did was give, 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 what did that translate to? An adult who just gives and gives and gives of themselves without any expectation of anything in return. The law of reciprocity. And so that translates into how we interact with other people. I tell my kids, when you go to daycare, you ain't giving shit until they got something to give back to you. When they got something to give to you, that's when you give. It's called the law of reciprocity. How many of you people watching, how many of you people listening spend so much time giving to other people until you finally got tired of being used and decided to do for yourself? If only you learned that when you were younger. If only you learned that when you were younger. Well, let's start to put this stuff into our kids. Let's start to put this stuff into our kids. You make them read this every day. I wrote this like a creed because I remember in my military service where we were saying things. And sometimes we were saying things in creeds. We understood what it meant, but we didn't know when we needed it. Well, we didn't need it for the time that we were saying it, but we needed it for the time of war. We needed it for the time of battle. We needed it for the time where no one was going to be around to help you. We needed it for the time when we needed to depend on ourselves first before we were able to depend on other people. And the things that we said that was religious, the things that we said that was in our minds, that is what gave us the combat mindset to push past those bullets that were flying towards us, to push past those obstacles when we saw friends or battle buddies to the left or to the right of us, forward or aft or behind us. When they got blown up, when things were happening and we saw that the conditions and the suck and the fog of war, that's what caused us to push past those obstacles that the people who were training us knew were going to happen. If you really love your kids, you are going to prepare them for what's going to happen when you are not around to help them. And it starts by keeping that shit real. Real world affirmations. Stop lying to your kids. Stop lying to yourself. Yes, near and dear to me. It's going to always be that way. All right, this is Instructor Mike, and you have been trained. What's in it for the Black People Media Network? Great content, great shows. Up next is The Bigs. That's right. Don't go anywhere. The Bigs is up next on What's in It for the Black People Media Network. Until next week, I am your host, Instructor Mike. Triggering you, pissing you off, making you throw shit at your camera, pulling over so you don't get into a traffic crash. And you only gonna get this and more on What's in It for the Black People Network. I'm your host, Instructor Mike. Until next week, I'll see you.